The street hasn't changed that much from what you see now. The doors and windows have changed, of course, but life carried on pretty much as normal. Well, you could, on a rough day, you could hear the sea from the back garden here. The sea wall and the beach is only about 300 yards away as the crow flies. And so on a rough day you would hear the waves breaking on the foreshore. First signs that there was anything unusual was the wind the night before it happened. Well, I remember going to bed. I slept in the front of the house. My parents slept in the back. There was a terrible storm. The wind was considerably higher than usual. You could certainly hear the roar and crash of the waves on the beach at the top of the road. And the first thing I really knew about it was in the early hours of the morning when I heard my parents arguing. And the argument revolved around that one of them had left the tap running in the kitchen downstairs. And eventually my father got up, went down, and discovered that the tap wasn't running into the sink, it was the sink running into the kitchen, where the pressure of water in the drains had forced the contents up into the sink and then overflowing into the actual kitchen itself. Shortly after that, literally seconds after he got in there, the toilet that opened off the kitchen overflowed, which caused some alarm, I have to say. I won't repeat what I heard, but you can probably imagine what it was like. Well, the first thing I was told was not to go and look out of the window. So, of course, as soon as they gone downstairs, I did. But they went downstairs and tried to move as much furniture and clothing and foodstuffs as they could onto a higher point, because obviously at that time nobody knew how far the water was going to rise. Well, as soon as they gone downstairs, of course, I looked out the upstairs window, and there were waves running down the street. And at that point, a small vehicle came down, and you could see the little bow wave it was pushing up. And it was quite, for a 5-year-old, it was a mixture of fascination and fear, I think. I remember sitting on the stairs with my parents, watching the water rising step by step. And it rose fairly slowly. And I think it got to about 3 steps and stopped. Oh, I mean, no two ways about it. At 5 years old, you're scared, you know, because there was no easy way out upstairs. And you just didn't know how high and how fast it was going to come. It's probably daylight before we realised it wasn't going to come. But then, of course, you see there was another tide, and the wind hadn't dropped that much, and you didn't know what was going to happen on the next tide. Simply because you didn't know what had happened. You didn't know how the water had got into the street in the first place. A couple of days before we got the full picture. And my father worked in the dockyard, and when he managed to get into work and discovered what had happened in there, it was quite surprising. I think it was the following day we got evacuated out of the upstairs window. I think I got swung out by a couple of guys on the back of a lorry. My mother came out, my father came out, and then I seem to recollect going down the street picking up a few other people that had opted to leave. And then we got taken to a reception centre because it was up on the junction of Invicta Road and Marine Parade, and we were taken to a basement, as I recollect, and it's within about 50 feet of the sea wall. And you could hear the waves, in fact you could see the waves pounding the beach. And I thought, even at the age of 5, I thought, what a silly place to bring me, really. It struck me as being particularly vulnerable. But it was bone dry. I mean, there was no water anywhere near it, strangely enough. parents wouldn't let me come down and look at it. They came down a number of times and spent a lot of time in here cleaning and scrubbing walls and scrubbing floorboards and what have you, but they wouldn't let me come down. When I did come back to the house, you could see the watermark in every room, along all the decorations. No amount of scrubbing was going to get rid of that. I remember my father being quite rude to a couple of airmen who turned up here with a big truck and a hose and were going to dry the floors out. The trouble is they dried a number of houses out and all the floorboards had become U-shaped because of the sudden heat. Just warped the floors, and then he very bluntly told them that they weren't going to do it in this house and that they could go away. But yeah, it's just the memory of that night, really. Makes me very careful now where I buy houses, and that's one of the things I always check.